好，接住嚟嚟，我哋有請我哋嘅同事咧就引領我哋其他4位嘅委員咧就去坐低。咁其他我哋主持會議嘅嘉賓咧，勞煩你哋可以就座㗎啦，唔該晒。
Please do not rush into the report, please. We're going to be explaining the report to you. It is a lengthy report. If you plow into the report, you will not be able to ask any questions out of it. We spent about 10 months putting together this report, and I don't think it's practical to expect you to read and make sense of the report in such a short time. So please have a listen to me outlining the report and how this report is being put together. And after the report, after you have reported on today's press conference, if you have further questions, we will have further opportunity. So just have a listen to my presentation. This report is just hot off the press. Just yesterday, a couple of days ago, your colleagues came approaching me in my office and asked me how soon this would become available, and I didn't know. They asked me how many pages there were. I didn't know at the time either. So it's only now that we have the report available, but I can outline the report first. This report is well over 1,000 pages in Chinese, 1055 pages. The English version is 999 pages, triple line. Today, I'm going to be using Cantonese for this press conference, but we have simultaneous interpretation service today. And if you need SI service, you can.
To do this basically in Cantonese. That is because we have simultaneous interpretation. But if anybody wishes me to say anything in English at any time, just raise your hand, and I will try and repeat what I need to say in English. 今天可能是有一些国内的媒体过来哈。如果是大家因为是我基本上我会用广东话来做这个发布会。但是如果是大家认为呢，就是这个广东话听不懂那么有需要我用普通话的话，请你举手，那么我就可以用普通话呢跟大家来再说说那么但是呢，我们有那个同声传译，那么如果是你需要同声传译的话，应该是有一个话筒，那么大家可以那个问我们工作人员去拿那个话筒OK， 首先呢就
First of all, this press conference, we are making available this report. There are 16 chapters in this report, and in each and every chapter, we go into detail about all the various details. So this report, it would be hard for us to generalize in a few sentences. Someone asked me how long it is, and I told you that it is 1,555 pages in Chinese and 999 pages in English. It is very long, and it would be hard to simplify the details. But let me say something about the production process and all the details and the content, so that you would know what topic you want to specifically focus on. And then you will be in a better position to read the report. Now this report, as I said, there are 4 volumes with 16 chapters. Now what are they all about? First off, Chapter 1, we explain the purpose of the report. Now, this report is not about the excessive use of force on the part of an individual or any misconduct on the part of an individual, because these complaints will be subject to established mechanisms. But the purpose of this report, over the few months, we've seen all these public order events, and there were conflicts between the police and the public. So therefore, we set the scene in the report. We try to set the scene in as clear terms as possible. Now, with the scene set, we then move on to deal with individual complaints, and that would give us a broad comparison so that we can understand the situation. So we're not dealing with individual circumstances, we're dealing with an overall situation.
Secondly, is also very important, is after setting the scene, we can see some shortcomings of some conduct and then the improvement that's possible. So in each one of these chapters, we have made recommendations so that we can make improvements. And then altogether, we have 52 recommendations altogether. And then we will go into details of these recommendations. And the third is that we also hope that we can present a more complete picture from the last September to March this year, what has happened, and then you will grasp the fact. And this will help to understand the history and also the happenings through these years by the public. Somebody asked me, will it actually ease all the grievances in the public? But I think that you need to understand that IPCC is to monitor the complaints made by the couple and then the investigation. And this is our duty. So in the process of monitoring and observation, and then we will make recommendations on improvements to the Commissioner of Police and also the Chief Executive. So the report served these two main purposes. Of course, we also want the reports to serve a broader purpose and objective, so that the public will have a better understanding of what has happened in Hong Kong through the past months. So this is what we have, but this is not a third objective. And then if we can ease the grievances and then to resolve the problems and conflicts, then I think that this will be a very good consequences. And so after hearing the report, I hope that you will have a better understanding of what to take in the next phase. The first chapter is to explain, as I just mentioned, and then why, and then the purpose of this report. The second chapter is to talk about the scope of coverage. And then the third is the approaches we adopted for this study. And in the third chapter, if you look into it, and then you have a lot of information. The information covered not only from the police, but also from the public, and also from the media, and information from the international arena. So we have collated all this information together, including the international expert panel. And then you can find all this information in Chapter 3. we have tried our efforts to make it as detailed as possible. In Chapter 4, we will start from the last June 9th and to early March this year, and then to lay it down in a chronological order. So in Chapter 4, that you found it really long. So you have an overview of what's happened through the months. So we call it an overview. You can see that in this chapter, Chapter 4, we have a very big table. So you can see the table here. The table laid down what's happened in this month, how many demonstrations. I like to ask the help of Mr. Chair to hold up for you to see better. And then we have to make it really big. And then, well, even though that I could not see it clearly, but on the internet, that you will make it easier for you to read in a big amount. So from 2 this afternoon, we will upload to our website today. And then there you will see every details of this report, and also because this table. So every month during the past 6 months, and then we have indicate in red what's happened on that particular day. And then we will give a description on every day all through this month. We not only talk about what's happened from the last June to early March this year, and we can also see this summary of these happenings, so that the SAR and the police force can learn from these happenings. And starting from Chapter 5, you can see that we try to explain and talk about the complaints we receive. And of course, that all the complaints goes through CAPO. And there are a lot of them, and I would like the Secretary to talk more about this part. And this Chapter 6 is a very important chapter. It's about the use of force. If the police need to use force, and how they are being governed under the present legislation, and also their internal regulations and ordinance. So we touch not only on ordinances, and then we also make comparison with similar jurisdictions who also use the common law. And you can see that the conclusion is that our police force has also actually adopted internationally recognized kind of convention. Of course, it's not perfect. There are rooms for improvement. So we have also made a series of recommendations under this. And among all others, one recommendation is to see that they can use force more meticulously, and also that the training should be improved. We hope that the Commissioner can review this practice, and also to take references from other jurisdictions like in the US and also the UK. And then some of the practices are rather advanced, and like that every year, every 2 years, and then they will they need to go through a kind of examination in how to do the law enforcement. And then they all needed to be aligned with the legislature and different kinds of ordinance. And the police force should also review and deliberate their practice and the code of conduct in the use of force. And I see that police force have their own legal advice, and I think that they can take up these suggestions. And why we need to do that? Because the police need to abide by law, and then they need to have a better and more direct and timely kinds of legal advice for them to apply their duty. So this is what is being covered under Chapter 6. For Chapter 7 until the Chapter 12, it's about 6 incidences. It's the 9th of June, the 12th of June, and the 1st of July, 21st of July, the 31st of August, and also the Sunderland Center. And this on the 31st of October, they receive some of the people being arrested. So in each of this chapter, we detailed the happenings, and then sometimes you go into details of what's happened in 5 minutes or 5 seconds. So that this is very important, and we would stand you to tell you some of the examples of how we compiled all this information, and then how we make use of the different evidence from the different activities. And we will at least two information to cross-reference the facts. So we will try our best to find the truth, to find the facts. We don't have an investigative power, but as you all know, and in other parts of the world, in different countries, they might not have the similar investigative power, but they have facts, they have information. We have collect a lot of them, and then you can see that in the different chapters. And in Chapter 13, we talk about identification of police when they are on duty.
We have done a lot of researches there, having regard to other jurisdictions in the world, and in places where there are POEs happening frequently. By international standard, the police in Hong Kong can have similar arrangement. Although this may not be perfect, the commissioner can do a better job there. But basically, they're following the international practice. In Chapter 15, we conducted 2 investigations, and they were conducted by us. We invited UCL, a professor from UCL London, who interviewed the police officers for their views. We've also commissioned the CUHK, the Center for Communication and Public Opinion Survey, to carry out a survey on the perception of the police officers and also the members of the public. So these 2 reports will be posted on the web, along with the reports, the report itself. So you will be able to get access to the UCL report, as well as the CUHK's report. So the full text will be posted on the web alongside the report. Also, in terms of identification, we have commissioned Kiel University the Commissioner report. Again, these will be posted on the website, so there will be a whole host of information. You will not be able to digest them all. And on chapter 16, we have the conclusion. The conclusion is drawn from the information that I outlined. In relation to the 52 recommendations for the Chief Executive, there will be a mechanism to follow up on them, on the implementation, together with the police. This morning I submitted the report to the Chief Executive. The CE told me that the government attaches a great deal of importance to these reports, and there will be mechanisms to follow up on the report. You might wish to have listened to the Chief Executive's press conference later on today. I heard that it won't be so early. It is something like 4 or 5 or something. It is 2:30. It will be soon enough, but there is still plenty of time. Don't worry. The Chief Executive will be briefing the media. She's very busy this morning, and we didn't have enough time to go into minute details, except that she said the government attaches a lot of importance to the 52 recommendations, and there will be a mechanism going forward. As we didn't have time to go into detail about the mechanism, we spent about 15 minutes together, and she's dashing off to another meeting. So basically, those are the 16 chapters. If you ask me about Yuen Long and other events, honestly, it would be hard for me to talk about them in a few words. You have to read the report in detail. Today, I didn't plan this press conference, but why is the press conference planned like this? Now, with this report, even if we give you 30 minutes, you will not be able to make full sense of the report, because you have to read it in depth. If you have any further questions, we can arrange a further opportunity to talk about them. So I'd like to hand you over to the Secretary General, who will then take you through the complaints, not complaints to us, but complaints to the police, and the police have to hand them to us, so we receive these reports concurrently. And then Daniel is the part of the task force compiling the report. Now, why are they sitting here today? They're sitting here today because we have invited the chairman of a number of committees to oversee the compilation of the report, like Honorable Tony Jay. He is chairman of the Serious Complaints Committee. And Mr. Herman Hui is chairman of Operations Advisory Committee. And Mr. Clement Chan is chairman of Publicity and Survey Committee. And Mr. Douglas Lam is chairman of Legal Committee. So in the whole process of formulating the report, these committees played a pretty significant role of overseeing the whole thing. Take Daniel, for example. He put forward a draft. Now, whether we're going to accept it, we will not accept this on the first draft, and there will be extra drafts. We will not accept the final draft until we have enough information, and I may not accept the final draft, because over the past couple of months, everybody was working so hard. They were working incredibly hard. In particular, Daniel's team. We made life very, very difficult for them, because every time they submitted the draft to us, we didn't accept the version. And they're going to be explaining to you the details later on. Secretary General. It is the function of the Council to observe, monitor, and review the handling and investigation of reportable complaints by the Commissioner. The purpose of this report arises from the reportable complaints. So in Chapter 5 of the thematic study, we cover the complaints, the details of the complaints that we cover from 9th of June. We look at the POEs arising from the Fugitive Offenders Bill and also the complaints to the police. In this report, we draw a line at the 29th of February this year. I'm going to outline to you the latest figures as of the 8th of May. As of May the 8th, CAPO received 1,755 complaints with 7,697 complainants. 1/3 of 544 are they made 988 complaints. 2/3 1117 or 700 complainants involved in notifiable complaints. Mainly, they complained about misconduct, improper conduct, 200 or so, dereliction of duty, 200 of assault, 112, impolite, 109, abuse of power, 98. In terms of the identity of the complainants, 151 cases, or 26% of the complainants, are arrestees. When they're arrested, they probably were given improper treatment. And 137 cases, or 24% of reportable complaints, are reporters on the scene. The remaining 296, the complainants, are people on the scene. The complaints regarding reporters, 27, are submitted by the Hong Kong JA. 82 involve 2 media organizations. They filed the complaints for their reporters. There are 28 are individual reporters.
So in this report, we have been actually go into the 6 the particular dates, 609, 721, 811, 821, 831, and then also that we look into the police identification, also Sun Oak Lane, the detention center. And then regarding all these incidences and also the 2 particular subjects, on the 609, and then 23 cases of the reportable cases relating to Legislative Council. 13 of them is submitted by the reporter, and then to talk about how the police actually handled with the reporters, like by barging, and then also impolite, etc., using actually 612 is also about the conflicts around the Legislative Council, and then the 25 reportable cases on that particular date. Among them, 25 related to the use of force by the police. That include on that particular day the use the tear gas, tear spray, and rubber bullet, and also police baton. And then among them, 16 cases is submitted by reporters on the scene. 9 are submitted by other people, and there are the 3 cases relating to impolite behavior. And then in the 6 incidents, and the 721 is mostly received the most complaint, about 51 complaints, and then the most are related to the 999 without answer, and then some are impolite responses. And some complain that after making complaints to the 999 and then the police showed up on the scene and then took action against the assault. 831, on the particular day, there are the 14 reportable cases. And we particularly look into the Wai-chuen station. There are 4 related to that, and that they are all related to the police firing tear gas within the Wai-chuen station. And there is also a complaint saying that they were being actually suffered by the tear gas fire by the police. And on that particular day, that there are 4 reportable cases, but relating to the Prince Edward station, there's only 1, and that is submitted by a reporter. He complained that when he was doing his duty within the station, the police stopped him from performing his duty. Relating to Sanok Holding Center, and because it has attracted a lot of public attention, and there are complaints saying that the detainees are being badly treated, etc. And there are only 1 reportable cases relating to Sanok Holding Center. The legal representatives have said that the police actually stopped them from making necessary contacts, etc., for a few hours. And about police identification, there's 31 cases, they do not show their warrant card, and police refuse to identify themselves on the scene. And there are complaints saying that when asked about the ID, and then the police refuse. The total number is 37 cases. The chairperson has mentioned earlier on that we have decided all complaints after the 9th of June will be handled by our serious complaint committee. So every time when the couple will collect evidence or do investigation, we will send the member or observer to monitor so that the couple is doing a fair job. Until today, there are 730 cases where couple collect evidence on the scene or having investigation with the arrestees. And we attend all these cases. That means 730 of them. You may also ask that there are over 500 reportable cases. Then what is the situation now? And for us in this thematic study, we hope to achieve the objective that we can set the scene and then have as much information as possible to speed up how we can handle all these cases. Until today, couple has already complete the 203 cases, and then the report has already been submitted to IPCC. Of these 203 cases, 42 have gone through full investigation. About 80 of them, and the complainant withdraw the complaint, and 74 of them is not trackable, because the complainant cannot be identified, etc. And then, for the rest, they try to resolve it to a more simple way. So among these 203 cases, and then they are still being handled. Until today, we have already approved 4, and 2 of them are withdrawal, and then 2 have gone through full investigation. And the 2 after a full investigation, and has been confirmed, and then it's been proven that the police has used foul languages, and so the penalty is being warned. of the 96 cases, we have asked a couple for more information because we still wanted to get more background information, and we also asked couple to identify the police being alleged, and then also that we want to have more CCTV or different evidence. Now, with amount the 96 cases, we are still awaiting a response from the couple. The amount is 76 of them. And then after this thematic study, we will have better knowledge and understanding in while handling all these different complaints, and this will be the major task for us in the next stage. Now, I would like to ask our Secretary General to talk about the challenges we've encountered in the process. Thank you, Mr. Yu. If you cannot hear me at the back, please raise your hand. I want to tell you about how we do this study and then how to compile this report. And well, as the Secretary General mentioned, that we have identified 6 major incidents and 2 particular topics. What we aim to do is to clarify the facts in these 6 incidents and also 2 issues. And how we are going to do it, we would collect different kinds of information, including that from the media. Of course, that we do not just look at one. We will look at it in a very comprehensive manner. And we also receive information from the public, including the video clips from the mobile phone. We also visit different organizations and then get the CCTV clips, and we even have recordings. And after collecting all these different kinds of information, we try to organize them, and then also to triangulate them, all these different kinds of information before we put them into our report. After the triangulating and the compiling all this information, we start to have a picture of what happened on that particular date. And then with this, we present it to the police and then get their comments. And we notice that there are public attention on the different days. And we ask the police on how they deploy, and then what approaches they taken for different days.
And we got hold of the police information regarding the deployment on the scene, and we reconstruct the details there. In the process, we would report to the steering committee. We've been having 30 meetings, roughly having a meeting each week. When the steering committee gave us the instruction, we will get on with the task. The steering committee will also report to the full council. We go into great details, sometimes on a minute-by-minute basis. I don't propose to give you minute details here. If in your question time you'd like to find out more about a certain section, I'll be letting you have more details. Page 30 in the Chinese version. Page 27 of the English version. You have the details there. We have received information from the members of the public. You get some idea how much there is. We have received 20,000 photos and 20,000 or so video clips. so they have the work cut out for them. Maybe these will become the historical records going forward. We have collected all this information. Whether they will be made public, we will have some discussion. At the present moment, we are not disclosing them, but there may come a day when the information may not be necessary, and we may be handing them over to the library, and we will consider these at a later stage. We have 52 recommendations. Where are they? In the English version, in the page 176, volume 4, page 176, Chinese version, volume 4, in the last appendix, and you get to see the 52 recommendations. There is a list of all these recommendations. Let me summarize some of them that are considered to be important. I think most importantly, when the police are using force in the execution of duty or in the self-defense, in the PGO, the police general order, there are provisions regarding this, and in some cases they can do a better job, and there are many recommendations there. I'm sure that the police will welcome these recommendations. And most importantly, the police do have their own PGO, but the important thing is every single officer will have to abide by the PGO. And we have to make sure that every single officer is abiding by the PGO, and there should be a more rigorous oversight or supervision mechanism and a training mechanism and a more sophisticated presentation mechanism. So there are some recommendations there, which I think is important. The other thing I think is important is the use of tear gas. A lot of tear gas was deployed over the months, and many people were worried. So we have made a recommendation that an expert committee be formed to look into this as what the next step is going to be. I think it will be up to the Chief Executive and the Commissioner themselves. And this is an important aspect. The other thing I think is important is that in relation to the media, I don't see a good relationship between the media and the police. Maybe I have played it down too much, haven't I? I think that we have to make concerted effort as to how best we can take the matter forward. The Commissioner of Police told me that he has invited the various media organizations for some discussion. We have made a recommendation that the police should liaise with the various media organizations. The police have to enforce the law, that's for sure, but the media have the obligation to report. Now, how can we strike a balance between the two? It needs candid discussion between the two parties. Maybe there can be some code of practice that will be formulated. This is important. This is the news that has to be resolved. Unless this is resolved, the ties will be strained going forward. Whether the police will be able to do it, I'm sure that they have the sincerity. The Commissioner told me that he has the sincerity to do it. It's up to you whether you have the sincerity. I think it takes two to tango. It needs the two parties to come to some discussion. The other thing, which is just as important, is that the police relationship with the public is significant, is vital. When force is used, the police would explain the situation in a technical manner. How can they explain the situation and present the situation in more layman terms? What is important is that a lot of the messages are disseminated through the media. LIHKG, a telegram, are cases in point. In the report, there are so many examples that are cited. So how can the police use the internet to disseminate the message and to communicate with the members of the public? And this is very much a challenge. And how can they rise to this challenge? So of the 52 recommendations, just highlight some of them that are important for your attention. At the final point, somebody asked me whether we can pacify the public sentiments with this report. Now, we are working within the legal framework. I hope that with the presentation of all the facts, we very much hope that the public, after reading the facts, would think about the situation. I like classics very much. One of the classics in the four classics, it's very simple. You know all these classics. What the great learning teaches is to illustrate illustrious virtue, to renovate the people. You can roll them off your tongue. We do have the obligation here. Everyone has the obligation here to take society forward. So how are we going to go about doing it? In this classic, there is a saying which is a very good inspiration for us. And what is this about? Things being investigated, knowledge become complete. The knowledge being complete, the thoughts are sincere, the thoughts being sincere, the hearts are then rectified. The hearts being rectified, the persons are cultivated. The persons being cultivated, the families are regulated. The families being regulated, the states are rightly governed. The Hong Kong U, the motto for Hong Kong U is to learn knowledge. Now, why do I have to have these motto? In society, I think we have to look at facts. We have to examine the facts. We cannot just go by hearsay and take it as facts. So I very much hope that this report will present the facts in a rigorous manner. And from the facts, I hope that everybody would be able to understand what responsibilities and roles we all have.
Hello, Alvin.
我想即係問一啲問題嘅3個問題。第一咧就係嗰個呢個關於使用武力嘅方面咧，你嗰個即係主要嘅呢個建議係咩咧？同埋一啲就係關於即係特別嘅一啲嘅守則嗰方面，你亦都講到即係話咧嗰個使用嘅呢個武力。
Said restraint, isn't that two conclusions contradictory? And as the police commissioner said, it's only individual officers being accountable. Is it the IPCC's position to say there's no systematic abuse or disregard of the use of force guideline in the past few months? Second question, you pointed to the enforcement issues, but how do you ensure in the police force and amongst all those officers, especially when there is already, as you said, a guideline there to ensure accountability and the culpable officers who deviate from these guidelines are held accountable? Finally, do you still maintain the views that the government should consider a commission of inquiry to put a closure, as you previously said, to the entire saga. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all say that use of firearms itself is not contradictory to any of the guidelines. The question of use of force in terms of the law is that it has to be proportionate. And there are essentially sort of three circumstances in which the use of force may be envisaged. The first is that there is a law enforcement issue that you therefore need to actually use force proportionate to either prevent, arrest the person. And in terms of arresting, there is also another overlay principle, which is that you need to use force sufficient, in fact, to effect the arrest. And finally, the third issue, which is self-defense. Self-defense, of course, again, is proportionate to the use of force against you. Now, in terms of the use of firearms by the police, now we have seen that, in fact, there are actually 12 instances of use of firearms in the last 8 months, from June to now. In all of those 12 instances, and you see in our Chapter 6, in fact, we have a table, in fact, which lists out all the circumstances in which, in fact, these 12 instances were used. And those are cases where, in fact, potentially lethal force was being used against the policeman concerned, or suspected, or in fact the police has a reasonable suspicion that lethal force might be used against him. And of course he used firearms in those circumstances, and actually 19 shots were fired. 3 shots actually, in fact, did hurt people, and those people, of course, have now been released from hospital. We have no fatalities in terms of any kind of encounter between the police and members of the public at this stage. Thank God for that. Now, however, there were fatalities. There's at least one fatality where, in fact, people have been using vigilantism against one old person. That person has been killed. Now, in terms of how do you make sure that officers are accountable. Now that of course is the challenge of all police forces around the world, not just the Hong Kong police force, but the Hong Kong police force is accountable under the law. And which is why the commissioner actually needs to have good management systems and good training to ensure that the officers, in fact, who are put in the position of having to use force, know how to do that, in fact, in the right circumstances and in the proportionate amounts. Now that of course is a judgment that every police officer has to use, in fact, when he encounters, in fact, force used against him. This is the situation where we have seen, for example, the police officers, mainly speaking, although there could be exceptions, that whenever a police officer used force, in fact, he used this in reaction to force being applied towards him or his officers, or in fact to the public. Now, I do say that there could be exceptions, and I'm not saying that aren't. And if there are exceptions, in fact, in those cases, then the commissioner should look at them. And in fact, if this is seen by anybody, I very much hope, in fact, people would make a complaint so that this could be followed up. But we are a society based on the rule of law. So we rely, in fact, on the people who enforce the law, of course, to obey the law. But we also rely, in fact, on our citizenry to respect the law. If our citizenry do not respect the law, then we have very little society to speak of. Now, in the past 8 months, we have seen, in fact, protests which originally were peaceful. They then degenerated into violent protests, using weapons of all kinds, in fact, against police and others. Property was destroyed. And this was the situation that our police force was faced with. When they are faced with this situation, of course they have to enforce the law and they have to protect themselves. And that is the situation that we had in Hong Kong. Now our report, in fact, reports this as far as we can. A lot of that is drawn, in fact, from information supplied by you. Some of that, of course, we collected the information ourselves, but mainly you can say if you look at a report, it's information provided by the press. So you do have an important role to play. And I would think, therefore, that we have to be careful and fair to the police force in this case, is that they did have a very, very difficult situation to deal with. And they had to enforce the law. And they have been attacked, and they have to defend themselves. Now, there would be cases where officers might have gone beyond, in fact, what the law would allow. And this is what the commissioner would certainly follow up, and this is what we will certainly follow up. But the question that Elvin, you asked is that how do you ensure that? That is the challenge of management and supervision, which will always be with us. And we actually have to ensure that we do have the best systems and the best training. And that is the real reason why we made those recommendations. Now, the commissioner, as I understand him, fully understands this. And you will have to ask him, when you next see him, what he intends to do. Now, the third question is about the Commission of Inquiry. I've always said that I personally, as a citizen of Hong Kong, do not discount the value or the possibility of such a commission, even if only because it does ensure closure, as Elvin closed it. But I speak as a private citizen on this. But as the IPCC, we have no legal foundation to say anything like this. Our role under the law is just to report. Our role under the law is to understand the situation and to deal with the complaints as they come to us. So I hope that helps. Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing systemic that you with the police to support the deviation of
I don't think that there is anything which is systemic as such. There is something which, because the police does have all these systems. So I don't believe the police force as an institution, in fact, has fallen below what I would consider to be, in fact, sufficient systems of management and guidelines. However, these guidelines are certainly not perfect. And we have seen, in fact, a situation where, in fact, there's been public criticism, public misunderstanding, and so on. So we need to have more perfect. 大家有需要讲普通话还是讲广东话？吴先伟。
Let's change the microphone. Can you hear me? Do you want me to repeat what I said? No? Okay. Please.
白色衫嘅男士。
Hong Kong EJ. The report has been published. So what is the IPCC's position of a Commission of Inquiry? We can see that after August 31st, a lot of incidents that were just briefly touched on. Will the IPCC be following up on the issues? Now you have the 6 chapters, so you've devoted a lot of coverage, but all the rest of the events, they were not in such detail. Are you not attaching equal importance? All right. Commission of Inquiry, the IPCC doesn't have any position. The law doesn't allow us to have any position because we're only allowed to do what the law confers upon us to do. So we don't have any position there. Elvin asked me about my personal position. I've said that I do not rule out this at all, but we need to have discussion between the government and the members of the public. So if you ask me, I keep my options open as to whether this is going to be done. It's not for me. Regarding the 52 recommendations, we have a mechanism to follow them up with the police. This mechanism has been around for some considerable time. We have made many recommendations before, and there is such a mechanism which is going to be used. This morning, when I met the chief executive, she said that there may be additional mechanisms. She didn't have time to go into that, so you might wish to put the question to her later on today. She might talk about it today. A lady in black, please. Oriental Daily. Recommendation 38. The commander and the officers, when using force, should bear the responsibility. Is the IPCC of the view that they should bear certain responsibility? And how do you define the responsibilities there? Second, the IPCC doesn't have the statutory power to subpoena witnesses. To what extent is the report a reflection of the truth? Do you think that you may not be able to cover the entirety of the events? How confident are you that the recommendations will be taken on board? How many of them have been accepted? And how likely that these recommendations will become part of the police practice? Will you follow up on the social events, like the conflicts between the police and the public on the 10th? Right. COI, I've said enough. There is nothing I'd like to add. Second, regarding the police officers, it is necessary to delineate their duties in detail. It doesn't mean the existing mechanism is not good enough. Given the tense situation, the police should give more guidelines to their staff. Now, as I was asked a moment ago, how can we make sure that each officer will abide by the guidelines? And for this to happen, we do need to have a good enough management system and training system. And we need to have a more detailed explanation to the officers concerned. In the UK, the US, they do have more sophisticated system to explain the guidelines to the officers. I think they can take a leaf out of their book, and there can be legal advisors who would offer legal advice. As I said, we don't have investigative power, whether we are reflecting the entirety of the truth. Now let's have a look at our terms of reference. It is very simple. First, we're here to monitor the handling and investigation of complaints by the police to see whether they are impartial. From the information we gather, it would help. Second, how can we identify areas for improvements in these circumstances? So this is within the legal remit of our work. With the information coming from different quarters, we feel that this is complete for the purposes of our terms of reference. As to other matters, this may not be the case. I think within our terms of reference, we conducted a complete study. In terms of our functions, I feel that we have put together a complete report. Chairman, if I may add, Mr. J. While the chairman mentioned 52 recommendations, in 2014-15 to 18-19, we have made a total of 90 recommendations. The police have been proactively following them up, and they have adjusted or changed some of the practices, and that's by way of supplement. So for these 52 recommendations, we'll follow them up, as Chairman said. a moment ago, I'm sure that the police or the government would be positive about these recommendations. But simply put, these 52 recommendations are just coming out. It would be impractical to expect them to be implemented straight away. Today, the chief executive told me, which I take encouragement from that. She said that she attaches importance to these recommendations. Let's see how she and the commissioner will implement the recommendations proactively. Mingpao Daily, a couple of questions, if I may. The IPCC admits that there is no investigative power. In putting together the thematic study report, did you face any constraints? Did you try to secure investigative power? Will you follow up on the protests? There are so many different conflicts on a daily basis. Will you continue to follow up? Will there be any deadline for this committee? In the report, there is no judgment regarding the use of force. June 12, August 31st, you said that if they do not follow the guidelines, there will be measures to be taken. If they do not follow up on these irregularities, do you think that this is unable to pacify public sentiments? And for July 21st, you said that you don't have the investigative power, but a superintendent patted on the back of a white shirt, and you don't have the power to investigate collusion. Why do you think that this is not collusion between the two? Daniel, did you come across any problem when you go about your task? I think we have to ask what is the purpose. I am originally from the law enforcement agency. If you want to get to the bottom of the matter, you have to have the investigative power. But the purpose of this exercise is to look at the entire issue and see what happened on the scene. If I want to have a holistic picture, and when the capo submits a report to us, if the information is of assistance, then it would be good enough. When we reveal the situation, I think I have to say that the members of the public and different organizations are more than willing to submit us the information, so we didn't experience any difficulties there. We have had 20,000 clips and 20,000 photos. There was a copious amount of information there. I hope that is sufficient to address your question.
陸處長咧亦都講緊咧，佢哋做緊調查咁所以變咗咧，即係我哋唔係一個執法機構嚟，我哋只可以咧即係喺我哋嘅嗰個法例裏邊係即係法律係認為我哋所應該做嘅事咧，我哋喺呢個法律嘅框架裏邊做我哋工作嘅。所以變咗咧，即係咧，你問我需唔需要調查咧？係做我哋呢啲工作，我哋係唔需要調查嘅權力嘅咁當然咧，即係第日即係睇翻。
Well, we're looking around the world. There are investigations done by the different IPCCs. So I think that whether that we should do that, I think that the public should answer these questions. In the 10th anniversary report, I have made my personal opinion. Well, now that it's already 10 years, and I think that maybe that we need to review the terms of reference of IPCC. And then I think that this is something up to the public to decide, and then it's not only us. And of course, we will continue to review our work. And new things happen, new complaints will come to us. We cannot just say, well, that we don't know what's happening outside. So we need actually to pay attention to what is happening outside. And then, but whether that we are going to produce the huge and report as such, I don't know. We need actually to keep a close eye on the development of the society under our terms of reference. And about abuse of power, yeah. Well, on 21st of July, relating to abuse of power or force. Well, in our report, we put a lot of emphasis on the police as a department and also an enforcement branch. They actually need to bear legal responsibility individually under the law. So we really need to look into the individuals, but this report does not deal with individuals. We look at the police force as a whole to see how they make use of the force in the execution of the duty. So after setting the scene, as what the Secretary General said, we have received over 100 cases on the use of force. And the police needed to look into this complaint, of course. Many of us already asked me how to guarantee, how to make sure that individual police officers follow the PGO. And I think that needs to have a really good management system and also training to see that happen. And then we have already put that into our recommendations. We cannot just simply say, whether that the police is abusing the power or the use of violence, etc. I don't think that makes sense, that has any meaning at all. And I think that we need actually to see how we can monitor and then also oversee whether that they are executing their duty according to the law. I hope that we can have some response from the Commissioner and to see how they will follow up with this report. And about the 21st of July, the collusion between the white shirt mob and then the police. Well, in the report, of course, we don't have investigative power. We haven't met with the police concerned. We can only rely on what we see in the video clips. And what happens before and after, we really need to build up, and that can only be done by the information we collect. I would like to add that, the most important thing about the 21st of July is that after that, in Yunlong, there are a lot of saying that, the police collude with the gangsters. We did not receive any complaints on that regard. So if you only make this allegation based on that scene, and I think that we cannot do that. So it seems that you're making a judgment. And I think that it is your discretion. For us, we cannot say that there are collusion solely from this video clip without knowing what's happened before and after. Okay, so please go back to. You have. So we have repeatedly said that we are not doing investigation, and whether there are collusion between the police and the gangsters, and I think that we need to have investigation. And then there are rumors saying that there are collusion, but we need to have the evidence. We need to have the evidence. So please go look at our report and then before you ask this question. So please look at the whole text. So they are just patting on the shoulder, and then simply by that you cannot conclude that there's collusion between the two parties. And then we repeatedly said that we do not have the investigative power. And then, of course, the police have not taken action timely, and then that might be the cause for the rumors and speculations that there are collusion between the police and the gangsters. Then I think that this is why we really need to look into and study the report carefully. And then just now you mentioned about patting on the shoulder, simply to take that out. And then with that, we cannot conclude from this that there's collusion. It seems that in the conclusion, although that you don't have that investigative power, but you have go into quite detail. Well, we could not see any evidence. There are allegations, of course, in the society, but we could not make the conclusion from the facts we've collected. Well, in a report, there are a lot of reports and then calls, and then the police have not taken action promptly. And the police has underestimated the situation. And then, do you see that there is a need for the police to make apologies to the public? And why do you not criticize the police for that? And in the report, have you asked about why that they do not show the identification, and then also about the ingredient of the tear gas, etc.? Well, first of all, we will not make a conclusion. We will not make criticisms. We don't have the power to do that. We have the power only to look at the complaints and then to see what the police has learned from all these incidences, and then to make recommendations. And so this is our terms of reference. If you think that we should criticize the police, please do so.
Chairman, July 21st, in the report, it says that in Jinlong, there were requests on 3 occasions for reinforcement. There were 200 or so policemen at the train station. There were 2, and there was another one in the vicinity. The report shows that the criminal investigation detectives saw the gathering of the white shirts, and because there was no law-breaking activities, so they didn't deal with it. That the protests have been going on for months, and the police would deal with any gathering, but the policemen didn't do anything about the white shirts, and no deployment was sent there. Did you ask or find out, not so much investigate, did you find out whether why the police did this? For the recommendations, you merely suggested that they disseminate the information. There are only 2 items regarding the strategies. Chairman, do you understand that what people are most concerned about July 21st is the violence and collusion between the police and the triads? that there are some suspicious events that occurred on the scene. Why is it that there was no recommendation in the report in this regard? Now, IPCC, I means independent. In the report, you have quoted from the court regarding the judgment on riot. You've also quoted from the police speech at the UN, and you've also quoted from the police about their words in connection with the early signs of terrorism. Why did you merely quote from the police? Is the IPCC truly independent? Third, August 31st, the police evicted all the reporters from the Prince Edward Station, and there were so many speculations and rumors circulating as of last week. And the police tend to ask the police to leave certain places like shopping malls and train stations and so on. Chairman, do you think that you're being too naive and you're just taking the police on trust, you're taking the commissioner on trust? Did you try to find out in executing their duties how did the policemen go about doing it? That the policemen send the reporters away. Do you think this is good enough? I'm sure that when you compile the report, you've asked so many questions, haven't you? July 21st. You probably have not got enough time to go into detail about the report. I am concerned about July 21st myself, and I've been talking with the chairman on many occasions. If you have time to read the report, July 16, I started from Fengyao North Street, and we saw something on the internet. Now, when we compiled the report, we said that for certain key event, key points, the police could have done something. If the police did something to address the situation, then the MTR incident could have been averted, or the incident could have been dealt with. If you look at the details, you'll find all the answers there. I don't think you would read them all. Have you? All right, you're a fast reader, aren't you? Right. About the independence, let me supplement here. First, we have made it clear to the public that anybody taking part in the movement, if they have any information that they would like to submit to us, we would accept them. So it's not like you said that we just collect the information from the police, or we just collected the information from the department that is cooperating with us. I'd like to clarify that you seem to be suggesting that we're merely listening to the police narratives or the department's narratives. As Chairman said, we have commissioned 2 universities to conduct surveys regarding the perception of the public and the police officers. That the CUHK survey covers the protesters as well as the members of the public. So what are their concerns? From the survey report, we lifted everything from that report without changing anything at all. So for you to say that we are selectively listening to the views from outside, I beg to differ. You asked me all these questions. I think you asked the questions on the basis of the report. Now, that's precisely what we have done. We have presented all the facts in the report. And we've asked the Commissioner as to how deployment would be done if similar situation arises. This is not an investigative body. We cannot condemn anybody for misbehavior. This is not a report about condemning anybody. We're just highlighting the facts. We hope that they will carry out a review. I'm sure the Commissioner Tang would agree that they could have done a better job there. Well, it all depends on how they deal with it. I cannot say for sure. The reporters do have the obligation and duty to cover the story. I'm saying in your defense, but it all depends on the needs in the eyes of the police. I can answer your question there. What conclusion do I have? August 31st? Well, there are so many rumors after the reporters have been sent away. This is not a conclusion. Whether they should do it, whether they should do it like this, we didn't say. And there were speculations. We wouldn't come to any conclusion. We're just presenting the facts. We've said that the police action might have caused some misunderstanding. Now, how can they make improvements? We'd like them to conduct a review, but I don't think I can instruct them as to how they go about doing it. Last two questions. The gentleman over there. Apple Daily. Before publishing the report, did the IPCC submit the draft to the government or the police? Did you amend anything as a result? If so, and when the IPCC sought information from the police, how many times did the police refuse to make available the information? Third, the chairman said that the report is setting the scene. It is covering the global picture. It's not about individuals. Now, for vigilantism, you have covered them one by one, and also vandalism. You have a whole list of the shops, and they were vandalized. So you should have come up with a table regarding the police brutality from the eyes of the public. I think that would salvage the reputation of the police in a better way. So in terms of monitoring the police, you could have used this power, but you didn't. Do you think that this report could have helped the public understand the IPCC's power more? Now, for July 21st, your observation is that it was very tense. There are so many people on both sides. But over the past year, we have seen so many gatherings, and there were actions taken by the police. So is this an observation arrived at by the committee?
I don't really understand your question. Are you talking about the July 21st? Yeah, it's when it is Nam Bin Wai village, and then there are a lot of people gathered there. Yeah. It's from midnight to the morning, right? Yeah, do you see in the TV that there are dozens and also hundreds of people gathered there in the village, and then the police did not take any action? Well, in the past few months, well, in different circumstances, they're saying that it is not realistic to do any kind of arrest under such circumstances, and I think that it does not hold. Well, go to another question like August 31st. Well, about closing all the exits. The police did not allow the media to stay on the platform and within the station. Who should bear the responsibility? Well, let's go to the procedural issues first. First of all, in doing this study, the police provide us information. Of course, this information is being asked, and then sometimes they take time to respond to us and then present all this information. But basically, they respond to every one of the requests. And so we got the questions, and then we will just send it to them in written form, and then they also reply in written form. So you can see that all this replied in the report in written form. And then about the observation and conclusion and recommendations, etc. This have not been presented to the police force. But 2 days ago, we submit the report for them to have a preview. At that time, it's already printed, and then they cannot make any changes to it. So the whole procedure is like that. And about the August 31st and July the 21st, and I think that we need to remember our terms of reference. We are not to condemn. We are not to investigate. We just are here to collect the facts and then to learn from this incident, and then to help the police to improve in the future action. And we are not here to condemn them and then to say that whether they should arrest or not. It's up to them to make the decision. And we are just pointing out what happened in those circumstances so that they can make improvements. And in this report, we also make recommendations that they need to review the facts, and then so that they can improve in their next action, and whether that the media should be there on the scene. And I think that this is a decision of the police. It is not also up to us to decide, and then about the damages and the sabotage. And then I think that this is within the terms of reference and jurisdiction of the police. And then they cannot avoid doing that. And then, of course, if you do it well, that they can avoid actually using the disproportionate abuse or force. And you can see that they have encountered a lot of difficulties. We see that we are not actually siding with the different parties. We are just telling what happened when the police is executing their duty. What I would like to add is that about disproportionate force by the police, we follow up on each of the complaints that we receive, and I think that this is a responsibility to do it as well. There are no TV. I also want to follow up on the report on the July 21st. And in your summary, you repeatedly describe that there is a miss of time in actually taking action and intervention. And then there is a lapse of 39 minutes. And then, I think that there are a lot of questions about that. And then relating to this time lag, and then maybe that whether that with that there is the negligence of duty to be concluded from this, and then well on. The arrest and also the enforcement of force, and then you just actually touch on and then saying that well that they should actually do it better and things like that, and then we just curious that if you can collect some information relating to how they enforce the law, and then so they take different kinds of action. Well, first of all, I would like to say that we receive a lot of complaints on the use of force. But relating to the August 31st, we only received one complaint, and then the complaint comes from the journalist. So as regard complaints, we don't see the need to do that. And what you need to see is that in August 31st, in one of the platforms, some CCTV has been damaged. So we cannot see the full picture. A number of them, a number of the CCTV camera on platform 3 has been destroyed. So what have collected has already presented. And then if you ask me the question again whether the media should be there, I cannot say for certain. I think that this is all up to the police. And we will not evade the facts. And then we will present all the facts we collect. And then just to tell you the truth. And then what we have collect is what we have presented here, and of course that we cannot tell things that we cannot collect. And then the video clips are given to us by the MTRC, and they also said that some of the cameras has been damaged and destroyed. And we can see that the MTRC camera just captured the scene from a distance, so you do not have very clear footages, and then it's not complete neither. About July 21st. Well, regarding July 21st, well, you asked a lot of questions relating to that, and then they all derived from the information we collect. It is not up to us to answer. It is all up to the police after seeing all this information, and then how they improve from the learning that they have, given all this information. And I just tell them the fact. You can see that, on July the 31st, and then in the table you can see the time sequence. And then the fact tells the truth. And then, if it doesn't tell the truth, you won't ask those questions.
Now, with the facts being highlighted, how should they take it from there? It is something for the commissioner. It is for the law enforcement agency to conduct their own investigation. We hope that this report would be of some use to them. The speaker is still speaking through. We've already said that otherwise you wouldn't have known about the time. We've highlighted the issue, and as to how this should be dealt with, it's not something within our remit. It's a question of how they can do a better job next time. We hope that we make this available to the police with all the facts there, and these have given rise to so many problems. If a similar situation arises, how can they do a better job? And this is the whole purpose of the report. Now, whether these questions give rise to dereliction of duty, this is not within our remit. This is something for the law enforcement agency. We hope that we can make available some information to them. Thank you very much. Well, they never rejected anything. They may submit the information a little bit late, but they never rejected anything. We got all the information we sought from the police. The process was smooth, basically. Some of them was late, like we asked them in September. The information was made available in October, and I fully appreciate that. But before we finalized our report in February, all the information we sought has been made available. The report is not speaking through. We wouldn't say it is ridiculous or not. We're just presenting the facts. Well, the question is, the committee is, Daniel submitted the information to us. It's a question of whether we accept the details or not. Now, if the information is not sufficiently substantiated, we wouldn't allow that. What about the terrorism, the conclusion on terrorism? Well, this is not the conclusion. This is from the Commissioner of Police. Well, this is what the Commissioner said. It's not our conclusion at all. So we just listen to him. We don't know about it, we just listen to him. He conducted the investigation. If you ask me, that this is precisely what the Commissioner said. They have picked up so many firearms and so on. Well, I think that this is an interim conclusion. If you don't trust the police, who will you trust? Because they conducted the investigation. You know, we are monitoring the complaints. We're monitoring the complaints. You have to think through this, please. So, is it the case that it would be good enough for the IPCC to conduct the investigation? We don't need the COI. We're not the COI. We've told you that at the beginning. I heard your question. I cannot answer you. You have to put this to the Chief Executive. We cannot act in accordance with the framework of the law. Thank you all very much. That's it for the press conference today.